Grandma Hannah was a woman of great wisdom. Elise remembers her saying it takes just a single moment to change everything. Grandma Hannah and Grandpa Charlie's life-changing moment came when they came across the inn in Apple Hill. The couple transformed the place into a haven for guests and a home for their growing family for generations to come. Elise was born and raised in Apple Hill. She grew up under the watchful and loving eyes of her grandparents. Hannah and Charlie were there to witness Elise begin to experience her own life-changing moments. Eventually, Elise's grandparents pass away, and she decides to take on the responsibility of being the new owner of the inn. She feels the duty to carry on her grandparents' hard work and keep their legacy alive. Long after she signs the ownership papers, she gets divorced and retains full ownership of Apple Hills Inn. Her ex couldn't be happier, calling the inn a liability. It doesn't change its significance to Elise, or the fact that she should never have married someone that couldn't see the significance. With Trent behind her, Elise gears herself up to polish and shine the family's treasure. She knows it's challenging, but she's up for the task. The inn is falling apart regardless of Elise's enthusiasm. The roof is leaking, the cooker malfunctions, and the chef quits. It's not always a damper, though. Apple Hills Inn is honored as a Landover historic destination, a debatable honor after a power outage. Elise remains optimistic, presenting blueprint plans to Ted. She's thinking of an expansion and electrical changes. Ted informs her that mismanagement started while her grandparents were still alive, due to hard times. Elise knows this already, but she'd still like to keep hope alive, believing they have to start from somewhere to revive the place. Ted doesn't get it. The inn is hanging by a thread, but Elise feels her grandparents would have wanted her to keep the place running. Ted suggests that she partner with hoteliers, but Elise hates the idea. Ted's hands are tied. He can't approve a loan without a 15% gross profit from the inn. Even if she were to magically get there, Ted advises it's wiser to face reality and let the inn go. He's sure her grandparents would have told her the same. Luke's mom tricked him into a lunch date. He was expecting their meeting to be work-related, but she basically says that he works too much. He's achieved quite a lot, and he should relax a little. He's the CFO, while she's the CEO of a well-known hotel chain. Luke is a workaholic with very high standards and goals. It makes his mom worry, because the staff would want to live by example, but it would mean putting in extra hours when they could be taking a breather. Luke has a problem, so his mom, Donna, makes a drastic decision. She deactivates his account and demands that he go on a 2-week vacation. He might not need a break from work, but his team needs a break from him. He might be CFO, but she's still CEO, meaning if he goes against her orders, she'll fire him. She promises she's doing this from a place of love and concern. Now that her decision is made and final, she's hoping they can get back to their pending lunch date. Luke is at home, idling away, when he knocks over a picture of him with Jared and Cadence. He calls Jared, who beckons Cadence over to greet Luke. They know he's a workaholic, so it's strange to see him at home and talking about a vacation. Luke wants to come to them. They own a place called the Tarvin, and Cadence is hoping Luke will lodge there during his stay. Luke happens to be a creature of habit, so if he's coming to Landover, then he has to stay at Apple Hill. Elise likes to do things the old-fashioned way because she believes it retains the inn's charm. Nora feels bookkeeping would be much easier if they could involve technology. Elise has an epiphany and asks Nora to watch over the place while she's out. The moment she's gone, Nora pulls out a tab to quickly computerize and aid her work. Luke and Jared are on a walk. Jared mentions that Cadence is more focused on real estate, although she helps out sometimes at Landover Tavern. Luke invested in them because he sensed talent. He has no regrets. Landover Tavern might be thriving, but several businesses have shut down along the way. They spot one and Luke is disheartened because of the memories attached to the place. Jared gets a call and their buddy time is put on hold until further notice. A good number of the businesses around have closed down. Luke sighs, not surprised. There's been some surprising changes too. A high school building he knew had been replaced with a park. Elise is hoping to blow off some steam at the arcade center. She finds her favorite machine occupied, and she learns it's been occupied for half an hour. Elise goes over to ask this guy to hurry up. It's Luke, and he suggests they could play together. Elise wants her solo time, but more than that, she's terrified and daunted by Luke's high score. She wrestles with him, getting the upper hand and ending his game maliciously. But it's too late. He's beat her record and now she's mad, storming out, leaving Luke to enjoy his victory meal. Elise returns to the inn, still fuming, and rants to Nora, who does her best to stay on Elise's side of this odd story. Nora knows how intense Elise can get, and thinks twice about pointing out that it was just a game. Elise continues, saying the guy from the arcade reminds her of Trent. Both, in her view, are rude and insufferable. Nora gently redirects, reminding Elise they need to focus on reviewing the guest list for the inn's upcoming visitors. Elise spots a solo guest on the files that Nora desperately wishes they could be digitally reviewing. Luke Bellwether is affiliated with Bellwether Holdings, a hotel chain known to acquire struggling businesses. Luke strolls in while Elise is telling Nora that they cannot accommodate him. He remembers her from the game, and bringing it up makes Elise apprehensive. Shifting into passive-aggressive mode, she's determined to drive him away. She says that they can't meet some of his service requirements, but Luke is ready to overlook that, insisting that he must stay at the inn. With a sly look, Elise orders Nora to prepare room 11 for their guest. Nora is bewildered knowing that room 11 has a leak that Elise is aware of. When he's out of earshot, Elise explains to a confused Nora that she wants to give Luke an unforgettable experience. There's no reception and Luke's door is faulty. When he finally gets it to close and tries to open it again, the doorknob falls off. Luke uses the landline to reach out to work. His mother's voice springs up like an automated message, addressing the team Luke left behind. Since Luke is on a break, his deadline has been extended and all scheduled meetings have been canceled. Luke nearly has a heart attack and scrambles to argue, but Donna ends the call on him, and when he tries to call back, he finds he's already been disconnected. To make matters worse, Luke discovers the drain pipe leaks. Luke sees Elise in the hallway and complains, wanting to change his room. They're fully booked. Elise lies, and he would have to manage what he has. She starts to walk away, and Luke follows closely behind. He insists on speaking to the owner, which happens to be her. He strikes a chord when he tells her she's intentionally running the place to the ground. She reminds him he wasn't pressured to lodge with them, and could possibly still go anywhere else. Elise gets defensive when Luke mentions that the inn has potential, but Elise isn't trying hard enough. Elise mentions the inn has a handful of honorable awards to say otherwise, and she's ready to show him the plaques if he doesn't believe her. As he walks away, Luke mocks that she must have gotten the plaques on the internet. Elise is left stuttering and struggling to have the last word. Luke gets hold of Bellwether's receptionist, Leanne. He urgently wants to speak to his mom, but learns she's too busy treating the finance team to a spa treatment. Elise and Nora get the inn prepared for another apple harvest. Nora admires Elise's dedication to preserving her grandparents' presence in the inn. The inn is not totally deserted and still gets a moderate inflow of customers, but Elise feels they could do more to get that 15% gross profit the bank needs for the loan. What happens if they don't reach that number is left unsaid. Power supply brightens up their mood, sort of. Chuck informs Elise that the fix is temporary, and Elise should budget for a new panel. In appreciation of Chuck's hard work, Nora asks Chuck to stay for dinner. He politely turns down the offer, oblivious to Nora's clear signs of interest in him. While Chuck might have missed it, Elise didn't, and teases Nora about it. Jared and Luke catch up over dinner. Luke remarks the town has changed, feeling more clustered, and learning their high school was torn down is a tough one. Jared brings over a framed photo from when they were much longer. Same time of the year, many years back. Candace joins them and recognizes the photo was taken at Halloween in Apple Hill. The mention of Apple Hill sends Luke into a rant about the inn falling apart and the new owner's poor hospitality skills. Luke gets told that Elise is the reason Apple Hill hasn't closed down. Luke realizes he does know Elise from high school. He's ashamed on her grandparents' behalf, and while both Jared and Cadence understand Luke's sentiments with Apple Hill, they feel like he could go a bit easier with his assessment. Cadence goes on to say Elise is a pretty nice person, and everyone loves her. It has Luke wondering why he's yet to share the same testament. The inn is hosting an orchard harvest, but Nora reveals that ticket sales are low, the lowest they've ever been. She remains optimistic about drive-bys and walk-ins, but it does little to lift Elise's spirits. Nora brings up the loan again, needing Elise to confide in her what would happen to the inn if they can't get the loan. If they don't get the loan, they'll have to shut down by the end of October, especially if the event for tomorrow fails. Elise and Nora bid each other goodnight. Left alone, Elise gazes at her grandparents' framed picture, her expression almost a silent plea for guidance. A hammering sound from upstairs suddenly pulls her from her thoughts, and she hurries upstairs to see what the commotion is about. The door to room 11 is still broken and ajar, and Elise's angry whispers draw out a nonchalant Luke, who's a bag full of mockery. The two have an argument over Luke's handyman skills at an odd hour of the night. Luke expresses that he should be comfortable in a room he paid for, and if she's unwilling to fix the room's issues, then he'll do it himself with or without her permission. Elise basically calls him insufferable, but he reminds her they're thick and thin until he checks out. Elise failed to bring in those clean towels, leaving Luke exasperated after a shower. Elise announces to Nora that they've sold 3 more tickets. Luke interrupts, holding bundles of bedsheets he dumps with Elise. He had to improvise for the towels. Luke plans to participate in the harvest, asking Nora to sign him up for apple picking. His back and forth with Elise reveals that he fixed up his room, including the broken knob and the leaking pipe. Nora is Elise's voice of reasoning that if Luke could fix up his room, he could possibly fix up the other rooms, which would increase occupancy. Though Luke has Wi-Fi access, he's been locked out of the company's account. His mom calls, warning him not to push her patience. She admits she'd hoped he'd be somewhere off-grid, and he confirms that Apple Hill practically delivered that. Apple Hill stirs her nostalgia, and she encourages him to appreciate Landover as it is now, reminding him that nothing stays the same forever, except change. It's apple picking day, and Luke shows up ready to participate, much to Elise's annoyance. He has some ideas on how they can spring up the event, but Elise is bitter in response. Her reply has him concluding that she's mean and rude because he's a bellwether, but Elise denies this. She continues to be tough on him, and he takes his leave with the mindset that she won't loosen up. Jared joins Luke to pick apples while Elise watches them from a distance. Nora is surprised that Jared and Luke know each other. Elise admits she has been overthinking things. Nora sees that Elise is keeping her guard up because she worries that Luke might want to buy the inn. However, she believes they shouldn't judge someone just by their appearance. So far, Luke has been nice and easygoing. He fits in well with the event and seems to enjoy himself, especially with Jared. Elise might be against social media's help, but Luke asks a family to tag Apple Hills in a photo he takes of them. Jared finds him and gushes about how great Landover is, the perfect spot for a vacation. Luke admits the vacation is more compulsory than voluntary, but he can't deny that he's starting to see she was right and he was wrong. His management style could use some work, and all he can do right now is take her advice, disconnect from work, and pick apples with Jared. Elise waits for Luke to head inside and for Jared to get closer before calling him over. He compliments her work on the event and reassures her that there's no need to apologize for not finding and greeting him sooner. Before work calls interrupt and he has to leave, Jared mentions Luke is the one from high school. Elise was several years behind them, and that's why she didn't recognize him. For Jared, Luke is a sweetheart, and the reason Landover Tavern still exists. Remorseful, Elise finds Luke in his room, words caught up in her throat. He takes a note she's holding in her hand, and he sees it's a repair to-do list. Luke has caught on and knows Elise is apprehensive because she thinks he's trying to acquire her business. Elise came to apologize. She explains that she never knew his last name while they were in high school, nor were they in the same class, or did they hang out together. She's sorry for wrongly judging him and remembers him as Jared's best friend, outgoing and fun. While packing his bag, he reveals his sentiments. His parents got divorced, and his mother moved with him to Apple Hill, so he could have a better childhood. Elise has made his stay miserable, and he'd like to leave with what good memory he has of home. Fully packed, he hands her the keys and walks away. Elise has 5 days until her follow-up with the bank. There's been nothing positive to show for, and she's starting to doubt if she knows what she's doing. After berating herself for how she treated Luke, Nora suggests that Elise take an apple pie as a peace offering to Luke, who's currently lodged at Landover Tavern. The ladies separately take apple pies to their interests, Elise to Luke, while Nora to Chuck. Nora meets a perceived partner in Chuck's house, something she hadn't envisaged. In pretense, she says the pie is from Elise and then runs off. Elise's tender apology softens Luke's heart. The pie and the apology metaphorically share the same nice smell. Luke welcomes Elise in and offers Elise coffee, proof of a truce. Elise is at her wit's end with the inn draining her last strength. If Luke had thrown in an offer for the inn like Elise thought, she would have grabbed it. Elise no longer sleeps at night. Keeping the company afloat by getting the funding it needs has been a Herculean task. Luke thinks he can help her out of the mess. Luke enters work mode. Organizing an event might just be the way out for the inn. It's October already, and Halloween is in a matter of days. Elise is pessimistic about the possibility of getting the company back with that one occasion. Selling tickets will greatly boost the company's prospects. Luke then gives a condition to accept Elise's apology. She has to agree to Luke's plan. Considering their tumultuous beginning and how close they've become, the fair thing to do is for Luke to complete his stay at Apple's Inn. Elise proposes that too, and Luke agrees. Sourcing for Halloween decor costumes poses an issue for them. Luke explains why bringing back old memories is good for the town and also for the inn, but achieving that isn't an easy feat. Their first stop is a group of men and women putting together some costumes. Luke gives them a deal: join the decorations department for the inn and get free admission to the party. It's amazing how everyone jumps in. Luke doesn't joke with his desserts. On their way back, he craves pumpkin desserts, but Beamers have replaced pumpkin desserts with candy corn, and this upsets him. He has no idea how much his face lights up anytime stuff about the town comes up. For Elise and Luke, the story has changed from them being at loggerheads to becoming friends. The next day, Luke has a morning surprise for Elise. Luke drives down to the pumpkin patch owned by Ron. Ron and Luke are glad to meet again after about 10 years. Luke cites his busy schedule as an excuse. After a brief chat, Ron agrees to offer his help, but Elise finds it hard to understand why Ron has agreed to help. Luke stayed away for 10 years, came back, needed help and got it. He sure has a charm. Nora receives Chuck, but not too warmly. Chuck hasn't thanked Elise for the apple yet, and that's why he has visited. But Nora can't hide her unease seeing Chuck. All of a sudden, she's unnecessarily busy, pacing up and down and searching for nothing in particular. Luke and Elise walk in with boxes full of pumpkins. Nora is a bit relieved, something to take away the pressure off her. An essential part of Halloween is the extra lighting, but any additional lighting poses a threat to the inn's electricity panel. Elise makes up her mind to ignore it, but Luke won't allow that. He offers to help, but Elise turns him down. Luke presses further but yields no results, maybe because Elise would rather not be indebted to anyone, not even Luke. At the bonfire, Luke insists on assisting. He calls the assistance a temporary loan, but Elise is still wary of it. What if she can't pay back? What then? A soft landing isn't even what Elise wants. Of course, getting help for this project isn't a bad idea, but what happens when she needs help for the next project, and the one after that? Referencing the volunteers for the decor, Luke has the perfect response. People would always be available to help. Elise considers calling off the project, but it's too late for that. Luke has made big announcements on numerous platforms. Elise wouldn't mind Luke canceling though. But seeing that they've sold 110 tickets is a big step for the project. Back in New York, the Starfield deal is pissing Donna off. She's just come off the phone with her assistant and is visibly angry. Nora officially removes Chuck from her list of potential partners. She gives Elise the details of her meeting with Chuck's partner in Chuck's house. Luke chats briefly with Jared. Jared asks about the Halloween party, after which Luke shares their setbacks. The electricity won't suffice for the lighting. Jared once had that issue, and he solved it by simply buying a generator. The idea is well received by Luke. Donna lowers her ego a bit and puts a call through to Luke, but gets redirected to his answering machine. Luke had earlier complained about a photo of him, and Jared he can't find anymore, so Elise takes him to the town's library. There, they find the picture, and Luke is pleased. He's more pleased with Elise for putting a smile on his face. Elise reminds Luke of how much his face glows when something about the town is mentioned. Luke agrees that he likes it here. They hold hands briefly before leaving the library. At the inn, Nora shares the new milestone the inn has reached, simply because she went digital. She confesses that she did things against Elise's wish, but the effect has been positive. At the moment, the inn is fully booked for Halloween. Elise has no reason to be upset because Nora has done a good job. Luke's landline rings and it's Donna. Mama wants her son back immediately. Work is getting intense, especially with the Starfield deal. She thinks Luke has had enough rest and it's time to return. Luke chats with Nora outside the inn. Elise is the point of discussion, as she's nowhere to be found. Chuck comes around to help with the lighting, but Nora still feels uneasy anytime Chuck's around. She has no reason to stay around any longer, so she goes inside. Luke tries to help the situation. He initiates a conversation and talks about the possibility of Nora liking him. Chuck can't see why an attractive woman could ever like him. At the start of the discussion, he mentioned that his sister was in town the time Nora delivered an apple pie to him. Nora, who hasn't heard anything they said, steps out like a zombie and hands over lighting cords to him. Chuck still hasn't figured out why Nora's acting strange. Elise is at Landover Tavern and Jared is happy to see her. Cadence comes in and gushes about their new listing. Elise needs a favor though. She wants Jared and Cadence to help her with their oven for Halloween. Cadence is in a benevolent mood, so she offers more. Helping Elise's inn make all the food they need would be a great thing for them. Besides, as Jared remarks, it would be a cool advertisement for the tavern. Elise busts Luke's plan to keep her away from the inn when Luke insists on taking her to dinner. She doesn't mind, but would rather go to a place of her choosing. Elise is particular about Luke's smile, linking it to the joy from his childhood home. It's a good time for Luke to mention Donna's call. Elise is elated when Luke tells her that he opted to stay for Halloween. Over a glass of wine, Nora and Chuck are the subject of discussion. Of course, Elise is aware that Nora has a crush on Chuck. Luke corrects the notion that Chuck has a girlfriend. The lady Nora met is his sister. Elise is excited for Nora. Luke misses being in his childhood home. The calm, the serenity, the peace it brings. It's nothing like what they have in New York. Moments with Elise is special to Luke too, but his life at Bellwether still holds importance to him. He wishes he could be in two places at the same time. Luke takes Elise to the inn to meet the surprise. The lighting has been done. Elise is pleased, but holds back from scolding Luke for probably adding more panels. Revealing they opted to rent a generator calms Elise. Chuck and Nora enter, and shortly after, Donna enters too. A pleasant surprise for Luke. Now Donna sees why Luke has been a busy bee, who's failing to return her calls. Donna's conversation with Luke doesn't go as she hoped. She starts by placing all her trust in him, but in the end, Luke redirects that trust back to her. At least Luke is happy in Apple Hill, and Donna knows it. At the inn, Elise makes the big reveal to Nora. Nora maintains her cool after hearing that Chuck is single, but inwardly, she's excited. According to Nora, it's Luke's last night in Landover, but Elise wasn't aware. Before the party, Elise surprises Luke. She made plans for his favorite ice cream, and Luke appreciated the gesture. At the party, Donna enjoys watching her son's face light up. She even remarks she hasn't attended a party this lit in years. Everyone at the party has fun. Luke and Elise make sure to use the selfie stand before the end. The party is nearly a success. Everyone enjoys it and hopes for the next one, but they haven't achieved their short-term goal. They do not reach the necessary financial numbers. Hitting 13.7% is not enough. Ted makes it clear that it's 15% or nothing. Elise walks Luke to the door. This isn't how they envisaged Luke's going back to New York. They miss each other's company even before Like drives off. Luke is in New York, and as he gears up to meet with the representatives from Starfield, but Donna breaks the news to him. The deal has gone through. Luke's piece of advice for Donna to trust her instincts paid off. Donna has other things in mind though. Luke's stay in Landover has been a good experience for him. She'd welcome the idea if Luke wants to move back. All she wants is for Luke to be happy and live his life in fulfillment. Elise meets Ted at Ted's request. Ted now has other criteria besides the 15% for granting the loan. The excitement that Elise's Halloween party brought to the town is a better criterion than hitting the agreed percentage. For the first time in years, Apple Hill had a night-long fun fair, something the town lacked. Ted immediately approves the loan. Luke is back to Landover, and he'll be staying for a really long time. His first stop is Landover Tavern, where he proposes a deal to expand it. Jared eagerly agrees. His second stop, the main reason he has moved back to Landover, is Elise. Luke reveals his feelings formally, and Elise, who hasn't concealed hers either, accepts to be with Luke. Everything works fine for them. Luke surprises Elise with her favorite machine from the arcade. She's excited about it, but this time, they play as a team, and not as opponents. After a round, they feel they must have hit the high score, but they find that the highest scorers are a couple named Chuck and Nora. Elise and Luke gear up to beat their score, while Chuck and Nora watch on.